Right, Protect here. We're doing another video on about abortion. Let me turn off the air conditioner. Let me lower it down so you can hear me. 6 a.m. right now, and playing Fortnite in the background because again, my phone's almost rich. We're going to talk about the appeal to extreme and the appeal to minority fallacy. Even though they're different, you can basically add them, right? So here's what I'm going to say, right? So a lot of pro-choicers do this, and they use the very, very extreme cases, like, oh, what if your 5-year-old daughter was raped and stuff like that. Now, I think it's important to talk about these scenarios, right? Because they do occur. And, I remember Tip 2025, who's a horrible person, by the way. She said, well, pro-lifers do the same. Well, we're doing it to test a principle or respond to a point, right? When we say 9-month abortions occur, we're just stating a fact that in 9 states plus Washington, D.C., it is legally permissible, it's legally allowed to get one in 9 states plus Washington, D.C., a 9-month abortion, right? We're not saying they're common. We're saying it's legally sanctioned by the law, right? There's nothing in the law that stops it. And the same thing is we're trying to test a principle. Now you could say they're trying to do the same thing, right? Okay, well here's the thing. When you ask for an argument, right? When you ask these people to come up to a panel, they're very hostile, right? You ask these people for an argument, and they ask you a question, and an argument is not a question. An argument is a declarative statement, right? They ask you a question that you ask them for an argument. Well, and they respond, well, here's my argument. I'm going to ask you a question. What if your 5-year-old daughter was raped and blah, blah, blah? Now, I don't think abortion should ever be allowed whatsoever, right? And this is where we get to the appeal to extreme minority. One, even though you don't want to start off by saying this, we know that rape is a very small percentage of the abortions. It's less than 1%. You can get that citation from the Guttmacher Institute, the research arm of Planned Parenthood, right? We also know that minors getting raped and getting pregnant from it is also a small percentage, right? Now, they're talking about a 5-year-old. And this is an appeal to, not only is it an appeal to the minority, it's an appeal to extreme. A 5-year-old getting pregnant is so rare that there's only like one. I'll give the benefit of doubt, maybe a few, but there's like one recorded case in all of human history, right? It's a woman. She was in the 1930s. I think she was like Hispanic, and she gave birth at 5 years old. Now, the reason this story undercuts your point is that she survived. She had what is called precocious puberty. Precocious puberty is obviously we get puberty at a very, very young age. She survived, and I believe she had multiple children afterwards. I think she passed away recently. I'm not sure, but it undercuts your statement because the only evidence we have in human history, she survived. That's why you don't use this argument, this case. So using a case that it's so rare, it's only happened one time, and I'm being generous. I said a handful of times, but there's only one recorded case in all of human history. Maybe a few, but that's the most one people talk about because it's so rare. That's how many cases there are in all of human history, right? Whereas when we say partial birth abortions and 9-month abortions, partial birth abortions, we know Kermit Gosnell did them in Philadelphia, and we know he did hundreds of them, if not thousands. And we know late-term abortions in America happen 10 to 20,000 a year. I believe that's also from the Guttmacher Institute. Again, a small minority of abortions, but that's still a lot more. 10,000 a year is a lot more And that's just in America, by the way. So 10,000 a year in America alone is a lot more than one time in all of human history. So just think about it, right? Thousands of years, there's only been one case in human history, basically. But why do they do the most important of this video? It's not going to be very long, but or in theory, why is this done? The reason why this is done, right? It's an appeal to emotion. They're trying to like, well, if your daughter was this, that, it's an emotional appeal. They're trying to get to your emotions. That's how they convince people. Because if you've noticed pro-choice in many positions on the left, but pro-choice specifically, I would say a lot of people did not come to pro-choice rationally. All right. Only the Phil bros speak in this very intellectual language, right? But the average pro-choicer, or really any position in the world, but the average pro-choicer came to this conclusion because of emotions, or someone told them to be pro-choice, basically their parents or their school. Well, I'm pro-choice because they just told me to regurgitate stuff and not even think about it. Just listen to how some of these people talk and think about the topic, right? It's like this is the first time they've ever been challenged on their position, right? So why do they do this? Now, as I said, I think all abortions are immoral and they should be illegal, but why do they do this? Well, the answer is very simple. An abortion at like a 13-year-old girl is more, it tugs at the heartstrings. And like I said, I don't think it should be allowed. But people, obviously, most people are going to give that exception because, oh, why would they would, yeah, like, oh, you have a 13-year-old. Yeah, it's easier to find a justification in that case. Like I said, I don't think it's still justified. I still think it's wrong. But it's easier to understand why a person would go through that. A 13-year-old girl will go through that. But the general case of abortion, like the thing you see on TikTok, I'm going to make another video about this. But the thing on TikTok, this woman was at her gender reveal party. She found out it was a girl, I think, and her friend gave her abortion pills and she's celebrating. How come they don't bring that up? How come pro-choicers don't mention that, right? Because that's actually a very, very common reason for abortion, if you didn't know, right? Especially around, like, Southeast Asia and South Asia, places like India, you know, China, when they had the one-child policy. Parts of the world, they favor male, like, heirs and boys. So they would get abortions because the woman because a child is a female. I think in India, I forget the name of the procedure, the antithesis something, where they check the gender. I think that was banned recently, but it was common back in the day. That's why they would get abortions, for the gender reason. Now this reason, even though a lot of people believe it's woman's choice, you can clearly see it is much harder to justify abortion because someone doesn't want a girl than a 13-year-old child, right, getting raped. It is much harder to justify that. That's why they do it. It's a cudgel. They're using the extreme cases to justify the majority. We know what these people want. They want consequenceless sex. They want to have sex as much as they want. They want to have unlimited orgasms, and they don't want to be held accountable. That's why. Like a woman, for example, right? A woman, the socioeconomic reasons, right? Or if a woman doesn't want to, mess up her body or career chances. Oh, I wanted to get an abortion because, I wanted to get a lead role as an actor. Sounds insanely selfish, which it is. I think pro-choice is inherently selfish. But some are even worse than others. Some are more, the reasons are vile. They're all vile. Just think about it. The most common reason for abortion is the socioeconomic reasons. So let me get this straight. A person knew full well they couldn't raise a child, but they decided to do the action that creates a child in a vast majority of cases of pregnancy because they wanted like 3 minutes of pleasure. So you mean to tell me you kill another human being so you can have your fun for a few minutes? That is insanely selfish. That is why people run to the rape cases, especially minor cases, because when you look at it, the majority of abortions, if you see the reason, someone got an abortion because they had enough children. That's another reason. They already had 4 children, right? Or I just don't like the guy I'm with. If you those reasons, which are way more common than like a 12-year-old getting raped, right? It's because it's easier to defend. That's why. It is much harder to defend a woman, I just wanted a career opportunity. That you just seen an extremely selfish person. Especially the example I gave. The example I gave, again, the woman killed her child because she didn't like the gender. That happens in IVF as well, and surrogacy as well. I wanted a boy, so I killed a child. And in many cases, it's vice versa. They want a girl, they kill the child. It's a very common reason for abortion, especially around the world. It's much harder to defend that. It's like stealing, right? Now, I think stealing is justified in some cases. Some people disagree. But for example, let's say a person steals a loaf of bread for their family. Some people would still say it's wrong. That's a story for another day. But the important thing is, it is a person stealing for their family a loaf of bread for their starving family. You can understand, and like I say, you could argue it's justified. It is much more sympathetic towards that. Like, you understand, okay, they're stealing because they really don't have any other option. And it's very easy to defend that. It is very hard to defend. Let's go to another example. It is very hard to defend a person stealing because they just want to be rich. And they just want to make money, like a scammer. I think we can all agree that scammers are disgusting people. They're disgusting people. They have no qualms. They don't have a problem stealing people's money. They target the elderly because they know elderly people are not not technologically inclined. So they know they're going to fall for that. They have no problem stealing people's life savings because they're selfish people. It is much harder to defend a scammer stealing money versus a person stealing a loaf of bread for their family. Because one of them seems like, you don't really have a choice. The other example, you're just a very selfish person. So that's the same thing when it comes to pregnancy. People use the minority, right, because it is much harder to defend. You sound, in a majority of cases, you sound like a very selfish person. And to any rational human being, yeah, killing a child because you don't like the gender is disgusting. Or the race as well. That's another reason. People get abortions for the race as well. They don't want a black child. Again, you sound like a disgusting person, which you are. You are an evil person. So that is the reason why people, right, use that. It's a emotional appeal. It's an emotional tactic that they use to get what they want, to motivate people. It's all based on emotions. And I'm not saying you can't have emotions. Most people have been affected by abortion in some way, right? There is a time and place for it, right? I'm not saying you can't have any emotion whatsoever. But to use your argument and have it based all on emotions without any reason or any statistics, that's where it becomes, nonsensical. Because again, A person does not come to a pro-choice conclusion rationally. They do it because it's self-serving. And I could make another video. I have a prompt based on this, but pro-choice is a self-serving position. It is you are pro-choice because you gain something out of being pro-choice. Because if you were ever in a situation, oh, I don't have money, I don't want to go through this, oh, I'll just kill the child. It's very self-serving because it is a very selfish position. That's why I agree with a lot of people, right? I don't really call people whores often, but yeah, when people criticize women who get abortions, they're whores. That's what they are. They just want to have unlimited sex. And yeah, I'm blaming the men too. I think the men are degenerates as well. But these people are literally whores. They just want to have sex, and they, as much as they want to kill people for it. And that's disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. It just is. That's most people. That is a generalization, because that's most people who get abortions. That's most people. Has nothing to do with rape or incest. And by the way, incest, consensual incest. So we're going to do a video about that as well. Like, there's people who are so whorish, and I'm not even sure that's a word, but they want to, they would have sex with their own siblings. That's how disgusting these people are. Like, that's the whole point. Like, if people would be honest, the reason why they like abortions is because they can have unlimited sex. Like, whenever you criticize people about sexuality, that's the problem. Like, it's literally a lie that they convince themselves, right? That's the reason why they're fighting for abortion, so they can have sex, unlimited sex. They don't care about women. They only care about women who agree with them, obviously. They have no problem wishing rape on other women, which, again, I'll make a video about that as well. They don't care about that stuff. Like, you're a fool for believing that. And the Planned Parenthood and the whole industry, they don't care about the supposed women's right to choose. They're just saying that because they know most people believe in that in America, and so they can make money. It's a demand. They're supporting they're providing a demand for something. No, they're providing a supply for the demand. Which, again, I'll make a video for that as well. I'm just waiting for the match to end here. Try to get a win. But it's really delusional. And like I said, you can talk about these cases. I'm not saying these cases should never be discussed. I'm saying that's not the first thing you should really say, especially when you're the host in a pro-life live asks for your argument. Again, you ask for their argument and they answer with a question. As I said before, an argument is not a question. An argument is a declarative statement. So I don't know why they're doing this. Because again, it's an emotional appeal and a appeal to minority. Now, to respond, a lot of people say, oh, when you describe abortion, right, when you describe abortion, the details, well, that's not an appeal to emotion, necessarily. We're describing, oh, that's how abortions are done. Yeah, a vast majority are in the first trimester, but that's how, like, the being dismembered in the second trimester. It's not common for the second trimester, right? That's accurately representing abortion. You got to describe it the way it is, all the details. People who performed abortions will tell you that. That's how they did it. So, finally, the video is over.